What would you like the world to know about you?
Oh, I think one thing that anyone who's known me for about 5 seconds knows is that my number one special interest is rabbits. On a slightly more serious note, I love to write in any form, fiction, or right now, most of my writing's to do with my academic research, but writing is probably one of the most important things in my life. I'm originally from Northern Ireland, but I'm now in Scotland for university at the University of Glasgow.
Awesome. And where are you studying?
I'm studying theology, which is religion. And
nice. Awesome.
Yeah,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I did my undergraduate dissertation all about autistic adults in the church, which was a really fascinating thing to research.
A lot being done right now in terms of autism and religion. I host a lot of sensory-friendly events. So one of the big initiatives we have, especially here in the States, is to make our churches more sensory-friendly so we can accommodate everyone in the church and get more special need families going to church, which I think is duly needed, especially in terms of building a village. So I think it's really cool that you're doing that. Mm-hmm. So, Erin, when were you diagnosed? And can you tell us a little bit about that?
So I wasn't diagnosed until I was 18 in my final year of school. So throughout secondary school, I always struggled with communication. I didn't have any friends and it was quite lonely, although I excelled academically. And I think because of that, my issues weren't really flagged up as they might have been if I struggled in school. So initially, I was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder, which wasn't necessarily a misdiagnosis. It was part of it, but it wasn't until I saw a different psychiatrist when I was 18, and within about 2 meetings, she suggested going for an autism assessment, which was remarkable. It's something I hadn't thought of, but it suddenly made a lot of things make sense. So
that's awesome. You know what? You remind me so much. Obviously, you're younger, but I interviewed a woman who was 53 years old, a woman who's 56, who was diagnosed with autism at 53. And wow. She said the same exact thing. She said so many things made sense after receiving that diagnosis. But it's so curious because, especially in our community, I feel like a lot of girls with autism fall through the cracks. Have you noticed that as well in Scotland?
I think so. I think pretty much across the world, boys are diagnosed at a much higher rate. I think generally girls tend to be much better at masking. So I had as much sensory distress and all that as anyone else with autism, but because I masked, most of the stress was internal. Whereas I think stereotypically boys maybe express it a bit more externally. And I think that's why girls often go undiagnosed for so long.
Absolutely. What is one thing that you shouldn't say to somebody who has autism?
Ooh.
The one I typically get is, you have autism, but you don't look like you have autism.
Oh, heck yeah, yes. You don't look like you have autism. Well, what is it supposed to look like?
Yeah, exactly. What is one? This is a better question, probably. What is one misconception you currently see out there in the autism community that you wish was debunked?
I think something I wish was debunked is that autism is something that goes away. So, for example, I like to give talks about, my autism experience, particularly in church contexts. And quite often I get people asking me, entirely well-meaning, oh, how did you cure your autism? Because they see me, an independent adult, and they think, wow, she must have cured her autism. And I say, well, no, I wasn't cured. I simply learned how to make the most of my strengths. And I also had a really good counselor. So it's definitely not about getting rid of autism. It's about utilizing it to its full potential.
Absolutely. And it's a lifelong diagnosis. And I feel like people kind of just, they see individuals like us who might not really have characteristics of autism on the surface necessarily. I mean, especially like if you're just meeting us for the first time. But we really need to have a larger conversation about invisible disabilities, I think, in our community. So obviously you like rabbits, you like writing. What do you like to do for fun?
For fun, I quite like video games. I like reading. I like exploring. I really love traveling. I've been to 75 countries.
No way.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Unfortunately, Corona has paused that, but one day I'll get back to it.
Nice. My thought on travel, it's like my bags are already packed. So that's very, very cool. Where's like your favorite place that you've gone to travel to?
I really, really like Japan. I think that seems to be quite common amongst autistic people. Probably because anime is quite a common special interest, but I think Japan, it's a very interesting and wacky country to visit.
Yeah, the creator of Pokemon apparently also is on the autism spectrum.
Yeah.
So I've seen a correlation between that and Japan as well. A lot of kids I work with want to go to Japan simply to meet him, which is interesting.
I wish.
What would you say was your greatest challenge growing up with autism? And up to this point in your life, what would you say has been one of your greatest accomplishments?
I think my greatest challenge was definitely communication. I didn't struggle so much in primary school because I do think it's slightly easier to make friends in primary school. Essentially, I just found the other kids who like Pokemon and bam, instant friends. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite work like that once you get to high school. So it wasn't because anyone in high school was nasty or anything. I just couldn't communicate on their level and I couldn't quite express why. So I just spent most of my time alone, which actually feeds into the second question about strengths. Because I spent so much time alone, I needed something else to do during break and lunch times. So I started writing a novel and then I got it published before I left school. So
cool. So cool. And what's the name of the novel?
Liza's Avenger.
If you just had to pick one thing that you think helped you the most growing up with autism, what do you think you would say? Was it a specific therapy? Was it a person in your life? If you only had to pick just one thing.
It's a hard toss-up between two things that I think helped equally, but I think number one has to be my mother because she's helped me every step of the way, like even before diagnosis, helping me get the diagnosis. So for example, in the UK, the waiting list for a diagnosis, particularly as an adult, is dreadfully long. So my family chipped in to pay for a private assessment, which I realize is a privilege that most people can't afford. But because they were willing to do that, I was able to get the support so much sooner. So yeah, I think my family, particularly my mother, was the most important thing.
Shout out to mom. Yeah, my mom was so pivotal towards getting my diagnosis too. And we often say in the autism community, it's like your parents end up most of the time becoming a child's greatest advocate. Is there anything else you would like the world at home to know about your story?
Most important thing is to be yourself and live authentically, because I think that makes you generally much more happier. And also not being afraid to think outside the box, particularly within academic circles. It's thinking outside the box that gets you anywhere. So don't follow the mainstream.
I love that. There's a saying, don't try to peg a square peg into a round hole, because there is no one size fits all when it comes to autism. But I think there's no one size fits all when it comes to anybody on this planet. you know, we all have our unique strengths and weaknesses, and we kind of just have to collectively just try to find what we're best at, and you know, strive to do the best that we can with what we've been given.
Everyone, Kerry Magro here from A Special Community. I can't thank you enough for watching this video, and if you like this video, please click on some more videos around our YouTube page. We are just trying to give a voice to countless people in our neurodiverse community, so please, if you can, subscribe to our video page, and then you'll also get to see a little bit more about my story from nonverbal autism to today being a professional speaker. Thanks so much, y'all.